guess no one's really established himself at the top at the moment, and would have liked it to been us, but we haven't. And so, this game's vital for us, and if we want to push through, this is the first of 3.
Do you feel like the pressure is back on you guys again a bit more as opposed to last week?
Well, probably the same answer to the last question. It's a championship that we want to win, and this is a vital game. So, I think when you look at last week, we're bitterly disappointed with the result. There's no doubt about that, because when you're looking at the game, you're looking at the first 50 odd minutes and thinking, well, actually that group had a good base for that game. We should have been good enough to push through and win it. We weren't, and we clearly got a bit flustered under a bit of pressure, and it narrowed down some of our options. So on field we've got to get better than that, and that's, I guess, the next part of this group is getting consistency in that last part of the game. But from a championship side, it's a key, vital game. You have to go in and win this one.
The decision not to change the starting 15, what makes you confident that these guys can go out there and turn the result around?
Yeah, a lot of that's based on the performance earlier in the game. I thought we kept them in the game with probably some inaccuracies on that offside line, which was frustrating, and they went 3, 6, 9, 12 and stayed in the hunt. But overall, I thought scrum was strong. The line-out functioned really, really well. We were, our carries were going good. We were seeing the kicking space. We were actually doing a whole lot of good stuff, and I think that group's we're back in that and making sure we actually grow and get a few more lessons from that as well.
Were there some tough conversations during the week with players about performance, discipline and things like that you had to have, or the coaching staff had to have with some of the players? Yeah,
look, I think you have those conversations anyway. They're always have a bit more rigour after a loss, and particularly games where we were giving teams a lot of kickable penalties against us, and 18 points where we're feeding their psyche is frustrating.
You talked about the staying with the starting 15 being a result of the start to the game. Is the 4 changes to the bench therefore a result of the way you finished the game?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. I think like in Brodie's case, he's probably returned to play more than anything. It's tough on Tupou because he didn't actually get on the field, and again, so he's a guy we've got a lot of time for, but we're utilising this as a chance for him to play NPC and get some minutes. I think Dalton is, we've been desperate to give him some game time, and he's clearly a guy that we've got a lot of confidence in, so it gives him a chance to get some minutes. And Bodie's also coming back from injury, so Colsey, well, he's Colsey really. He's hitting people hard in clarity sessions and doing all sorts of things during the week, so he's ready to go.
Has Cody paid the price for the misfunctioning line-out in that second half?
Oh, I don't think Cody was at his best. He'd admit that, and but we've got a lot of faith in him. He's a quality rugby player, but sometimes it's the right thing to get that is just to take him out and just to work hard on things behind the scenes.
Has there been a greater responsibility put on the leadership group this week, given the ill discipline in that second half, to tidy up that area and get the messages right on the field?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the ill discipline so much. I think in the first half there were 4 defensive penalties that were frustrating early. The second half was more about the amount of territory and field possession that we had, and yet we perhaps didn't bring enough variety to what we're doing, and it's probably a sign of a team that's desperate to make things happen, felt that we had the upper hand and we're just going to persist and go with one method, and I kind of get that, but it didn't work, and we've got to be a little bit wiser on the park. But we've had some great conversations and work-ons about that, and the good thing is that we know that they're a much improving team. They're strong defensively, so we're going to get those same sort of pitches this week, so we'll see how far we've grown.
Ian, you've talked a lot this year about this team evolving and building. I think you even referred to rebuilding after Christchurch. What's holding them back from taking the next step, do you think?
Probably, if you look at the last 2 games, probably the consistency of of composure in that last 20 minutes, I reckon. I think if you look at South Africa, we stayed calm, we stayed in the moment in that last 20, and even under a little bit of scoreboard pressure, we stuck to trusting the decisions that we make. I thought last week we went away from that a little bit, and it's frustrating, isn't it? And it's something that we are working hard on to grow the confidence of that last part of the game, to make sure that we embrace those moments, but also stay really clear in our decision making. And I think that's probably the one thing. There's other areas that are grown. I think have really grown through that time period. But again, you look at our set piece last week. You look at our line out scrum. Well, absolutely dominant. For 60 minutes, and then it faded away when we needed it. So that's the mark of the growth we need to make.
And you've opted for minimal changes the past few weeks. Just in terms of selection, if you don't make changes, where does that pressure come on incumbents to perform?
Sorry?
So,
Sorry.
yeah. Minimal changes the past few weeks.
So not changing the team, so where does the pressure come?
Yeah.
Well, I think the pressure comes from performance, and it always does. But yes, I guess as a group we are showing a lot of faith in this 15, and we signalled earlier that we need to grow combinations. We need to, and we've felt that the best way to make changes is on top of a platform that we can then grow our game further. And clearly we haven't quite got that platform right yet. So our hunch is to go with a group that is working hard at the moment, that is slowly building combinations, and I think there's enough evidence that we're getting there in many parts of our game, but it's actually growing that confidence when we get into the tail end of the game has just consistently been strong, and it's an area that I think great All Black teams have always been good in that last 15 minutes of backing themselves and doing the right thing. And again, we've got it right in South Africa, and we got it wrong at Christchurch.
There's been changes to the coaching staff, trying to make changes in various systems, attack, Jason Ryan with the forwards and whatnot. Usually those things take time to bed in, but from a results perspective, you probably don't have a lot of time. How are you managing that dynamic?
Tricky. It's not easy. It's not easy. So if there's definitely some new voices, and we're looking at a few new methods behind the scenes. I'm personally really excited about that, and have really enjoyed the trend of where we're going. But it always has to sort of result in results, doesn't it? That's the market that we're in. So I get all that, but all I know is that I really believe in what's happening behind the scenes, and I guess when you look at new voices in the coaching group, and then it's probably one reason why we haven't made a lot of changes on the park. We haven't decided, we didn't want to change all the variables, but we just really feel we just need to cement some things that we're doing now. And you look at, I'm sure everyone's as frustrated, or we're as frustrated as everyone with last week's game, because it was a game that, based on what we saw on the park, it was a game we felt we did enough to put ourselves in a winning position, and we weren't ruthless enough to do it. So, few issues here.
Two boys going back to Taranaki, you were saying, are you releasing any more players?
Yeah, I think we're releasing about 8 players. So, we're releasing more than normal, and primarily based on, we've had 2 weeks in South Africa, we've come back, we've had some new coaching voices, so we've wanted the group to stay together for last week, but with us leaving on Thursday to Melbourne and that being a short week, we can't have players playing next week, so we've made a decision to release quite a few this weekend.
On a personal level, Ian, how's this week been being back in hometown? Have you been able to get away from footy at all a little bit more? Or?
She's a tough job to get away from, particularly in a test week. So, look, I haven't wanted to get away from it, but is it good to be home? Yes, it is. There's nothing like sort of going back and having a night's sleep in your own bed. So I've loved that. Figured out that my wife still loves me, which is important to me, but you know, I'm really proud of being from this region, and it's been a big part of my rugby. So I guess there's a whole lot of pride of being involved in the All Blacks in this part of the world, and you know, personally, I'd love nothing better than to put a performance on the park that shows that.
If things weren't to go well, a lose again this weekend, how secure do you feel?
I don't think like that, Aaron. I'm an optimist.
Ian, what's your message to the public? They're going to see you've come off probably the most disappointing performance of the season, and there's been a few of them. And I guess the perception will be there's no accountability. You haven't made any changes to your starting 15. What's your message to people who might say, well, why isn't someone paid with being dropped?
Yeah, good question. I guess for those that want blood, I guess we haven't given it, have we? But I guess the message is, Mark, is that we've been pretty ruthless and hard on ourselves behind the scenes. We're hurting with where the team's at, but we're also trying not to. If we dwell too much on that, then you know, if you play under fear, then you restrict your options, you restrict your thinking, and what actually happens is that you just don't get the game going the way you want to do it. So part of what we're doing now is actually, okay, well, what do we believe in? And we actually believe in some things that we're working on now, and we believe that there's enough evidence that there was some things going really good, but man, it didn't translate to the result that we wanted. And we think the best way to build the confidence in those key pressure moments is to put the guys out there that have just been through it, have felt it, and now we've talked about some different solutions, so we're backing that. But there's pressure on. There's always pressure on individuals when they run out in a black jersey, and we're expecting a response in that particular area.
Just the other side of it is, are you confident that some of those guys, particularly in the pack, they've played a lot of rugby this year, they might have looked a little bit tired back into that test? Are you confident guys, I guess, like Sammy Whitelock, who's played a lot of rugby in his career, they've still got a spring in their step, they've still got what they need? Yeah,
look, I think Sammy's played some great tests, ironically, the last couple of months, and frankly, the yellow card near the end of the game didn't help some of that, where we had to leave a few legs on. So that's something that's a bit of a niggle in the last couple of tests, is that getting that yellow card near the end, where we maybe can't make the change that we want. But am I confident? Yes, I am. And in terms of the players, but they also know that we've got to respond.
Ian, can you talk to us about the development of Roger Tuivasa-Sheck as an All Black? I know when you named the team, you were quite keen to get a hold of him and work on a few things. Can you talk about his development as a player? Are you starting to see the things that would give you confidence to put him into a starting test match situation at any stage soon? Yeah, look, we're starting to see, pretty clear, and he's a fast learner. His work from the attacking side, particularly getting involved around our forwards in the middle of the park, is something that he hasn't spent a lot of time on during Super Rugby, so that's been taking a little while. His instincts at the breakdown are probably the number one growth point for him, and again, we're seeing some really good strides in that space, and so he's another one of the guys that'll be playing NPC this weekend, and that's some aspects that he can go away and work on in that space. So overall, really pleased with the growth, but I guess it's now just waiting for the opportunity. When you do release players, are you speaking specifically to the provincial coaches about what you are asking them to do, or is it one of those cases where just go away and play?
Yeah, there's a little bit of just go away and play. Look, the coaches have been outstanding, and there'll be some coaches that, that if there's if there's a key area that we do want a player to develop, we'll certainly share that. But it's a bit hard for the NPC coaches to change things that they're doing, and we plonk players back in. So it's not as easy as you think it is. So the general message is the player goes with a couple of key things that we want them to focus on, and that's probably a little bit more general to them as a rugby player than specific to a game plan type scenario.
And do you think we're starting to see the results of prolonged Argentine participation in the rugby championship, like since they came in 10, 11 years ago? You know, like is it no accident that we're starting to see Argentina tip up yourselves, Wallabies, stuff like that on a more regular basis?
Yeah, well, in some ways, yes. I mean, their scenario's changed dramatically, hasn't it? Like when they were involved in Super Rugby, they were probably guilty of getting worn out because of all the travel they did, and whereas the last couple of years they've become basically European-based players playing in European competitions, and when they've come together, they probably have done a lot less travel than what they used to. So it could be the flip side of them leaving the Super Rugby competition has probably strengthened their squad from an international side.